On Friday, December 11th, the Vatican unveils the Nativity scene in St. Peter's Square. In a press release, a Vatican City official announced that the manger aims to be a sign of hope and faith for the whole world, especially in this difficult time due to the COVID-19 health emergency. Titled Monumental Nativity, this nativity scene was originally created between 1965 and 75 by students and teachers from the F.A. Gru Art School in Castelli, Italy. The original work contained over 50 pieces, but only a few were selected for the Vatican's nativity scene, and of all they had to choose from, they chose an executioner or pagan warrior wearing a horned mask. The astronaut is said to portray the astronauts of the late 1960s and early 70s, according to a description for visitors of the scene. Monumental Nativity is said to be a tribute to the world-renowned ceramics works of the Abruzzi region, while giving a postmodern twist to the classic nativity scene. Speaking with a local newspaper, Italian art historian Andrea Cionci asked if it was a nightmare or a masterpiece. In the choice of this crib, all of the themes of the Pope Francis pontificate are recognized. Above all, heavy modernism and a drastic break with tradition. The masks resemble that of the ancient and ferocious Samnites, ancestors of the Abruzzi, who had a pantheistic magical religion, a bit like the Andean fertility goddess of Pachamama. The center focus of this piece is not Jesus, but rather the angel Gabriel. He is surrounded by a massive halo. Gabriel looks more like a female figure than a male, though. Furthermore, the angel towers over a ribbed pillar. The overall shape of this pillar is highly reminiscent of an important symbol in ancient Egypt called the Djed pillar. The Djed is a common symbol in ancient Egypt and is said to represent the god Osiris, more specifically his spine. While the symbol probably bears an esoteric meaning relating to the chakras, which are said to be based on the spine, the Djed is also a phallic in nature and associated with fertility rites. In fact, that the raising of the Djed was a very important ceremony in ancient Egypt. The raising of the Djed ceremony is meant to represent Osiris's triumph over Set. During the ceremony, the pharaoh uses rope to raise a pillar with the assistance of priests. This coincided with the time of year when the agricultural year began and the fields were sown. Overall, the raising of the Djed ceremony represented the raising of Osiris and the strength and stability of the monarch. Did the Vatican deceivably make its believers just witness a raising of the Djed ceremony? The general layout of the Vatican is actually Egyptian magic in plain sight. The phallic obelisk represents Osiris and the male principle facing the womb-like dome of St. Peter's Basilica, representing Osiris and the female principle. The same exact layout can be found in various power centers of the world, including Washington, D.C. In Egyptian magic, the union magic of male and female principles, Osiris and Isis produce a star child, Horus. In esoteric terms, that star child is potent magical energy. The Vatican has an obelisk and a dome, but where is the star that completes this trinity? It's there, but we need to look from above. St. Peter's sits right in the middle of an 8-pointed star, also known as the Star of Ishtar. An 8-pointed star also sits atop the Christmas tree that stands next to the monumental nativity scene. Considering that these figures were created between 1965 and 75, it may possibly be a reference to the moon landing of 1969. But why, in 2020, did the Vatican select this to stand next to Jesus? Even more baffling, why is there an executioner or ancient warrior wearing a horned mask standing next to Jesus? This is a very bizarre figure to place next to a newborn baby Jesus, especially considering the fact that Jesus himself was ultimately sentenced to death. According to the religious news service, the executioner is there to represent the Vatican's opposition to the death penalty. That's a pretty weak argument. While monumental nativity was created decades ago, it was selected for this year's 2020 nativity scene for a specific reason. It contains specific symbols while containing a specific energy. With everything else that's happened this year, the scene seems to be about showcasing the control of the elite and the demoralization of the masses. Pope Francis inaugurated the scene, which features a number of life-sized figures, Friday, December 11th. But many people have expressed disapproval of its unusual appearance. The Catholic Herald ran an article labeling the Nativity as comically awful. The title of the article was "The Vatican's Embarrassing Sci-Fi Crutch," while some more excitable people called it demonic, pagan, and idolatrous. Reports Vatican News, "The Feast of the Nativity reminds us that Jesus is our peace, our joy, our strength, our comfort," said Pope Francis during an address to the attendees at the inauguration Friday. But to receive these gifts of grace, it is necessary to feel small, poor, and humble, like the figures in the Nativity. The thin neon light in the back of the Nativity may be meant to remind us of a mountain range, but it does look more like lightning. Some are calling this the Darth Vader nativity scene. The Italians that were waiting in anticipation for the unveiling of the scene were interviewed. One attendee said that it's a sign of hope for sure. This tradition is at least one thing that hasn't changed. What a shock to the masses in attendance when this abomination was revealed. To add insult to injury, Pope Francis said during an address on December 15th, "The tree and the nativity scene help create the Christmas spirit atmosphere that is conducive to living with faith the mystery of the nativity of the Redeemer. The Christ child figure will not be unveiled until Christmas Eve. It is now shrouded in a cloth of scarlet red. Since these ceramic figures were made decades ago, we can see what the Christ child looks like when we go to the website of the art school in Castelli. When they performed the unveiling ceremony in front of quite a large crowd, they pulled back red curtains to the sound of a band playing in the square. Few applause were heard. A big question is, why in the world, when people need tradition more than ever in 2020, would the Catholic Church decide to choose this horrific portrayal? Let us examine this even more closely. Looking at the astronaut figure, which we are told is most likely a reference to the lunar landing of the late 60s, holding what looks like, we would assume, the moon or a moon rock. But it doesn't seem to look like that. It looks like it may be birthing something out of its stomach. In Babylonian symbolism, the goddess Ishtar is represented by an 8-pointed starburst. As you can see, there is an 8-pointed star on the side of the helmet of this so-called astronaut. Could this actually be symbolizing a birthing of Venus or Ishtar? Today, some people equate the Greek Aphrodite, whom the Romans equated with their Venus, with Ishtar. Both goddesses represent lust and sexuality, although Ishtar also represents fertility and war. Please notice how the astronaut figure is placed right next to the warrior figure. We are told that this warrior figure is a representation of an executioner in the guise of the church's opposition to the death penalty. In my opinion, this is not an executioner, but a god of war with his helmet, sword, and shield. Ishtar is an ancient Mesopotamian goddess associated with love, beauty, sex, war, justice, and political power. She was originally worshipped in summer under the name Inanna, and was later worshipped by the Babylonians, the Assyrians, under the name Ishtar. She was known as the Queen of Heaven. The central figure of this nativity scene is whom they are calling the angel Gabriel. This horrendous-looking figure, looking more like a woman than a man, is wearing a dual crown on her head. As you can see, this crown is almost the exact replica of the crown that the goddess Isis wears. The dual crown of Egypt was a combination of the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red crown of Lower Egypt. Red was linked with the fiery aspect of the sun and the goddess Sekhmet, Lady of the Flame. The amulet depicting the Eye of Ra was made with a red stone, and the sun disk she wore on her head was often red. Please notice the ancient pictures of the Djed pillar. On the top of each of these Djed pillars, there is a round red disc, just as there is on this so-called Gabriel angel figure. There is no way this is a coincidence when they are compared side by side. Why is this Isis figure on top of a Djed pillar standing right in front of a completely covered baby Jesus that cannot be uncovered until Christmas Eve? Did you think 2020 could get even worse? Well, it just did. After the fall of Babylon, the second and final time, Revelation 18:2, the Apostle John records, "Another voice from heaven saying, 'Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues.'" Revelation 18:4, God, Yahuwah, is warning them. I believe he is warning us to come out of this world. Satan is the god of this world, and it is detestable system. 2 Corinthians 4:4. The voice from heaven reminds them that they risk sharing in the sins of the world if they do not come out of Babylon, which is symbolic of the world and all the false religions. The voice from heaven warns otherwise. You share in her plagues, for her sins are heaped up high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Revelation 18:5. I implore my Catholic friends to please take some time and do your own research into the history of the Catholic faith, its origins, and its traditions of men. My prayers are with you. In the name of our beloved Savior, Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah.